Greetings and welcome to Trinity Radio Extra. I'm Jonathan Pritchett, and joining me today is Dr. Tim Stratton. How you doing, Dr. Tim Stratton?
I'm doing good, Jonathan. How are you doing, brother?
Good. Famous author, Christian apologist, professor at Trinity College of the Bible and Theological Seminary, evangelist for Maven, and most importantly, and what I think is the coolest, is country music rock star. Currently, right?
Oh yeah. Well, I play one on the weekends.
There you go. And well, also you were doing a an apologetics course at an art gallery here recently too, weren't you?
Just finished it up for this year, this last week on Tuesday, and I absolutely love doing that. I'll do it again next year, but here in my local community of Kearney, Nebraska. We meet at a art gallery downtown. It's owned by a Christian guy who opens it up for us. And we start out by discussing what makes art objectively beautiful.
Thank you. You believe in objective beauty, correct?
Yes.
Very good. Very good.
Yeah.
We need to do a whole other thing on that.
Oh, we should. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, but today we are going to be talking about faith, firearms, and fitness.
Oh, I like it.
Three things that I've become passionate about here in my 40s: the firearms and fitness. And by the way, you've written on this on your website. You got a couple of articles on this. I guess you've been asked about it regularly, given the fact that you are known to run around and shoot things. We've seen the video on your Facebook page. I don't know why you don't upload those to your channel, because it looks. One of these days. Is it Kearney?
Yeah,
Kearney, Nebraska.
Yeah.
One day I need to go down there and you need to take me to those little courses so I can run around and shoot things like you.
Oh, man.
That looks awesome. But to give a little bit of background on this. So if you go back in time to around 2012, 2 years before I came to Trinity, back then you could say that I was a political moderate. I was... never grew up around guns.
I didn't either.
I was one of those people who said, and I posted pictures of some old Facebook posts of mine in the Trinity Radio Primetime group where I posted some screen grabs of posts I had made about sensible gun control laws and reasonable gun control laws. And you don't need an assault weapon to shoot a pheasant and all that kind of nonsense. And my views on guns have evolved over the last 10 years to where I don't even own guns to hunt. I own guns to shoot people if I have to,
right.
Out of self-defense. And I get a lot of strange looks for that because I'm a Christian, and it's like, you could shoot somebody and perhaps kill them. And given my current abilities, probably not kill them, but I'm working. But I mean, could I shoot somebody in self-defense or defense of others? I've come to the conclusion, yes. I think sensible gun control doesn't exist, and I think that the Constitution allows us to carry bazookas. It's just that our government regulators are preventing us from having the same weapons that the military had, even though at the nation's founding they did have cannons. You could own a cannon.
Right,
you could own the same weapons that the military has. So I have changed my perspective a little bit. I don't want to ever have to shoot people. I absolutely never want to have to do that. But I've come to realize that I am not in conflict with my Christian beliefs. And just like my fitness journey, which we'll get into in the second part of this show, you've had a lot to do with my evolution of thinking on this matter. Reading your articles, talking to you. I mean, this one comes back from 2016. So you've been talking about this for a while. The Love Thy Neighbor and Pack Thy Heat on the Free Thinking Ministries website, which everyone should go read. So you received the question, And the question was, hey, Tim, should a Christian conceal carry? Aren't Christians supposed to love criminals, not kill them?
Yeah.
No reason you can't do both. No, but only half kidding, because there is some truth to that. But yeah, so you received this question from a man named Daryl. I don't want to talk about who Daryl is or anything like that, but I'm sure a lot of people like Daryl are out there and have, either mixed feelings or actually vehemently opposed even to anything that we're going to say today.
Yeah.
So what is your initial response to people who ask, is it okay for Christians to carry weapons?
Well, the first thing I'd say is just yes, and Christians are really the best people to carry weapons.
Wow.
Yeah, we actually want Christians who actually understand what it means to love your neighbor and to even love your enemy, to be the ones who are carrying weapons. We don't want people who are out there just because they want to shoot bad guys for fun to be the ones carrying weapons. We want people that truly understand the law of Christ and love people. Because if that's the case, then pulling the trigger would be the only time a person who understands the purpose of life and that it's love, the only time they would pull the trigger is if it's the most loving thing to do in that crazy extreme circumstance, which means it would probably never happen, especially for a civilian. But the most loving thing you can do is to be ready to defend life for the sake of love. And so, I think Christians can carry and they should carry. And really, when you think about it, they're the best ones to carry. So that's what I think.
Well, Christians who are in, with a proper understanding of those things. Exactly. It probably would not have been good for me. See, I just fired. I'm 47 years old, and I fired a gun for the first time in my entire life that was not a BB gun.
Wow.
February of this year. I'd never fired a gun. I got my first gun from my son, who owns about 30 of them. And he gave me a shotgun because my wife and I had become preppers because of the world's coming
right
to it. It may not come to an end, but it is going down the commode. So
it's getting crazy. Yeah.
And my son said, well, all the prepping that you're doing is you're prepping for other people unless you can defend it.
That's right.
Yeah. So I got to thinking about that and I was like, yeah. So he said, Dad, here is a shotgun. And he showed me how to use it. I've never fired it, but he showed me how to use it and said, the beauty about this is if you cock the shotgun, chances are the person will recognize the sound that's in your house and run. And if not, you'll hit him and along with half your wall, but that's the small price you have to pay to defend your house. But, I live in Indiana. We have castle doctrine. We have stand your ground. We have all of that good stuff. Self-defense is unquestioned here, unlike it's currently being questioned in places like Wisconsin, which I think are embarrassed and ashamed of themselves there. Because people ask me, do Christians have a right to self-defense? And I was like, yeah, that's a basic human right. What is a basic human right? A basic human right is you're on a deserted island. What are you free to do? That's a basic human right. Now, more informed biblically thinking, you want to be a good steward of that island. But if people or animals, either way, try to attack you, you have the right to defend yourself on that island. Right. And as long as they don't bother you, you don't have the right to attack them. Right. You love your neighbor. And so that's what you are entitled to. Imagine yourself on a deserted island, which means that the labor of others is not something you're entitled to, commies. That's not a basic human right that requires the labor of others to make your life easier. So, but one of those things that comes out of that is this idea that you can act to save your own life. Right. If you're if somebody invades the island or, you're attacked by an animal. But people say, but doesn't the Bible say to turn the other cheek, right? The Sermon on the Mount, Matthew 5:38, that's the first statement in your article that you addressed. And you and I handle this differently, but go ahead and explain your understanding of turning the other cheek.
Well, yeah, as I said in the article, it's probably the most popular verse used to justify pacifism. I know I'm friends with some Christians who are radically opposed to my conclusions here, but well, I guess I should say they've reached the conclusions prior to reading and considering my arguments that Christians should never fight back. No matter what, even if a guy, I know a guy who believes that if he walked into his house and he saw a guy breaking in there who was going to rape his daughter and maybe kill her too, that he might try to reason with him, but he's not going to fight him off. Well, I say you're a bad Christian if that's the case. Now I know he thinks that that's the biblical position, but let's show why that's wrong. So we don't need to jump to pacifism for several reasons. First of all, we got to make sure that we practice good hermeneutics and we take this verse about turning the other cheek in context with the rest of the passage, and let alone the rest of Scripture. But the 5th chapter of Matthew, where this verse is found, records Jesus's Sermon on the Mount that you mentioned. And one main point that Jesus is trying to convey there is that his followers should go beyond the letter of Israel's law in the name of love. So again, I say the objective purpose of life is love. God created us on purpose and for the specific purpose to love God, to love each person of the Trinity, and to love each person the Trinity has ever created. And that's supported with, Jesus gave so many commands, but he brought it down to the big two, the greatest 2 commandments. And it's all about love God and love everybody. And so it stands to reason that that's the objective purpose of life. We were created on purpose and for the specific purpose to love. And so with that in mind, Jesus teaches that when we are insulted or abused, that we ought to go an extra mile. And as I point out in the article, not an infinite amount of miles.
Right. I like the way you said
that. But an extra mile for someone who is taking advantage of us. And on top of that, we're told to pray for those who persecute us and to love our enemies. So in the article I quoted, gotquestions.org, they have something good on this. Let me read that. It says, to turn the other cheek does not imply pacifism, nor does it mean we place ourselves or others in mortal danger. Like the principle of the eye for an eye and tooth for a tooth in Matthew 5:38, turning the other cheek refers to personal retaliation, not criminal offenses or acts of military aggression. Clearly, Jesus did not mean to negate all God's laws and injunctions protecting us against violent crime or invading armies. Rather, Jesus is speaking here of the principle of non-retaliation. So I said that it's not clear that we should infer from this verse that Jesus would disapprove of carrying concealed weapons or using it in some extreme situations. And then what really makes that clear is you look at what Jesus said to his disciples in Luke 22, verse 36. He says, this is the words of Jesus here. But now let the one who has a money bag take it, and likewise a knapsack. And let the one who has no sword sell his cloak and buy one. All right, that's Luke 22, verse 36. So here, this is basically, if this was modern times, Jesus is saying, hey, if you don't have a gun, sell your coat and go get one.
Right.
Right. He's saying things are getting a little crazy here. Like you said, like you're a prepper, right? He's saying to be prepared.
Right.
And he's not saying, hey, let's take these swords and go out and start killing people. He's saying things are getting crazy. If you don't have a sword, you better get one.
Yeah. So in Matthew 5, Jesus talks, he opens this in verse 38. You have heard it said. You know what he didn't say? As it is written. So there's a difference there in the introductory formula. So the eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth, that comes from like Exodus 21, 24, Leviticus 24, 20, Deuteronomy 19, verse 21. And so he's not appealing to the text as it is written. He said, "You have heard it said," which means he is talking about traditions that have grown up around that idea. Okay.
Yeah.
And number one, that's a judicial context, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then note he said, "But I tell you, do not resist an evildoer. On the contrary, if anyone slaps you, repizzo, in the sentence is accurately translated slap, right? It's not a punch. It's not a, because I like what you said, insult or abuse, because a slap is more of an, in the ancient world, very agonistic culture, highly competitive, honor, shame, all of that.
Yeah.
If I walked up and slapped you in front of your wife, I'm not trying to like physically hurt you so much as embarrass you, right? We see that where people do that, like on the streets. Instead of punching somebody who's mouthing off, they'll slap them, sometimes pretty hard, just to get them to shut up. But it's to embarrass them, because throwing a punch is one thing, but just slapping somebody to embarrass them is another thing, right? Yeah. And so the next line, it says, "Turn the other cheek." The next line, "And if anyone wants to sue," again, law court language, "and take away your shirt, give him your coat as well." What's the point here? You know, and then goes on about the extra mile. Traditions had grown up to where what Jesus is saying is, if you are insulted, right, or abused, but this is not like serious. I mean, we've become a very soft culture where we think if you get slapped across the face, oh my God, words are violence now. Yeah, you know. Yeah. But what Jesus is saying is, don't go to courts over minor offenses just because you got your ego bruised a little bit.
That's right.
Because that is not an eye for an eye or a tooth for a tooth. Though, as it is written, which is not what he said. He said, as you've heard it said, what traditions around that. But as it is written, if you lost a tooth in that slap, maybe Jesus would say something different here. But he's talking about a slap. He's not talking about getting knocked in the face, right? Same thing about going to court. You know, if somebody's trying to take you to court over your shirt, just give him your coat, right? Don't get wrapped up in all of these trivial matters in comparison to the reliance on God to take care of you. And you know, those. And what I like about if you go back to the context of Deuteronomy 19. Starting in verse 18, it says, "The judges are to make careful investigation, and if the witness turns out to be a liar who has falsely accused his brother, you must do to him as he intended to do to his brother. You must purge the evil from you." Verse 20, "Then everyone else will hear and be afraid, and they'll never again do anything evil like this among you." Right? They're talking about malicious testimony. But verse 21 says, "Do not show pity." Do not show pity. Life for life, eye for eye, tooth for tooth, hand for hand. Don't show pity, right? That's what it says as is written. That's not the traditions that, oh, if you get your feathers ruffled, run off to court and, you know, be a baby about it, you know. So this is not even, in my mind, applicable to like a serious bodily threat. This is somebody's trying to shame you or humiliate you in public. Don't run to the courts over a minor matter. And if they're taking you to court over a minor matter, like your shirt, just give them your coat too. Who cares?
That's right. That's right.
So that's how I see this in context. So I don't even think people should be raising this verse as if getting slapped in the face when someone's intending to publicly shame you, because there's no reason for them to do it private because they're trying to humiliate you, right?
Right.
A context like that is not applicable to if somebody punches you in the face. It's that's different than a slap intending to embarrass or, like you said, insult, because that's what it is. It's an insult. That's not violence in the sense of, you know, life-threatening. Somebody's trying to do you serious harm. They're just trying to embarrass you mainly in its original context. So even to use this verse in Matthew as a non-retaliation under any circumstances whatsoever is to rip it out of its context and get people killed, essentially.
Yeah.
Uh-oh, my camera came undone. So
yeah, I see that. Now you turned into Superman.
Yep. Sorry about that. Having technical difficulties.
Hey, I see MJ Jackson in the comments. What's up, MJ?
Yeah. So that's my take on that. And then there's some objections that you address when you refer to the passage in Luke 22. And you address some people would object and say, well, the disciples were wrong to take that literally.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Oh man. Yeah, I think I've heard John Piper say, I mean, so in that passage, Jesus says, hey, if you don't have a sword, sell your cloak and buy one. And then Peter, I believe, says, oh, here, Lord, here's two. And Jesus says that's enough. Like he's saying, we don't have to be armed to the gills here, but hey, two swords, that's going to be enough for us, right? Well, John Piper, I think it was him, so I apologize if I get this wrong, but I definitely have heard others say this too. They say that when Jesus says that's enough, he's not talking about the amount of swords, which seems to make sense. That he's saying, enough of this crazy talk. Why would you think I was being serious? Something like, I'm like, come on, guys. That's horrible hermeneutics there.
Yeah, because Jesus brought it up.
Yeah, right. So, no, they're like, hey, we've got two swords here. Jesus says that's enough. We don't need one for everybody right now. But he's definitely not opposed to the idea in principle. They had a couple swords, and we know they had swords because what happens at the Garden of Gethsemane when Jesus is about to get arrested? Peter draws the sword. Right now, we can start talking about this whole situation, but the fact that for those who say that Jesus wasn't serious about it, then they've got to say, well, then how was Peter hiding this sword from Jesus? Was Jesus unaware of this sword when it was used? But no, we know the best context here is Jesus said, if you don't have a sword, sell your coat and get one. Peter says, we've got a couple. Jesus says, that's cool. That's enough. And then Peter draws it and uses it. Well, it makes sense because Jesus said, make sure you're carrying, make sure you're packing some heat.
Yep. And, some people say, well, he meant this spiritually. I think.
Oh, wow.
You had, where was that? Who wrote this one? Timothy, how do you say his last name?
Shao. Yeah. Great philosopher.
Yeah. Something about the use of the sword was in like a spiritual sense, but that didn't make any sense because the knapsack's not spiritual, right?
Yeah, that's right.
So I mean, I don't get that. There was another objection, like, okay, but in the garden, Jesus stopped Peter from using the sword, said, if you live by it, you die by it, right?
Right. I talk about that and love thy neighbor and pack that heat.
Right. So what is your response to that? Jesus, well, actually, when going back to your earlier point about Jesus knew he had the sword and he didn't tell him to hand it over to the authorities. He said, just put it back up.
Yeah, that's one of the things I say. So let's back up and let's look at this big picture here. So Jesus, throughout his ministry, when I say that he practiced self-defense. You've got the fighting and fleeing forms of self-defense. Well, on the occasion where the Pharisees were going to take Jesus and stone him to death, right? When they wanted to kill him, he would run and hide, right? He'd flee from him until this one occasion. Now, there's one occasion here in the Garden of Gethsemane where everything changes. And this is after Jesus gets done praying. He's sweating blood over this thing, sincerely asking the Father, hey, is there another way to do this? Is there another? He knows the cross is right around the corner. And he's asking the Father, is there another way to save humanity without me having to go through this?
Right.
And then he's like, but hey, he's sweating blood over the deal. And then he's like, but hey, if not my will, but your will be done. Let's do it. And so everything changes now. And so as he walks back down and he sees the authorities coming toward him, instead of running and fleeing, which he would normally do, this time he walks straight toward him. So here we see something's changed. And it's after
because Jesus is known to slip out from the crowds that were,
right. Yeah. And so what has changed? Well, during his time of prayer, he realizes this is the time to go save humanity. This is the time to go to the cross, and with boldness, instead of running from the authorities, this time he walks straight toward them. And when they say, "Are you Jesus?" he's like, "You got it. I am he." So with everything changing here, Jesus is not defending himself now. He used to, right? Why is he not? Because he knows he's got to go save the world, right? He knows. And so when Peter draws his sword to try to defend Jesus, since Jesus isn't defending himself anymore, that's when Jesus says, "Hey, Peter, put your sword away. Those who live by the sword are going to die by the sword." Now, I think what he's saying, I mean, we can't take that literally. And I talk about this in the article, because it can't be literally true that everybody who has lived by the sword has died by the sword, because I'm sure there's a couple samurais who have lived, who lived by the sword, who died of old age. So this is probably just general wisdom here. But Peter is also, with his one sword, looking to take on all these Roman commandos, right? Like the Green Berets of the time, right? Jesus is doing a couple things here, saving Peter's life, because he's not going to win that battle. And number two, even if Peter would have defeated the authorities there, then he would have stopped humanity from getting saved, because Jesus needs to go to the cross. So Jesus doesn't tell Peter to throw his sword away and never touch it again. He says, "Hey, put your sword back in its sheath," right? If a sheriff today tells his deputy to holster his firearm, he means, hey, put it away for now, but keep it on your person. You might need to use it again in the future. And I think that's what Jesus is doing here. He's saying, put your sword away right now, bro. You're going to get yourself killed. And number two, if you happen to be successful, you're going to stop the Father's will from being done, right? Jesus just said, "Not my will, but yours be done." So don't get in the way of that. And so I think that's what's going on here. That what has changed is it's now time to save humanity by going to the cross.
Yeah, that's a far different circumstance than your friend that you were talking to saying he would try to reason with somebody about to do bad things to his daughter. Right. So that the not a comparable situation. And so people want to like blanket that statement, "Live by the sword, die by the sword," so woodenly. I think what Jesus was doing was making a statement that if you lived by it now, you're going to die by it now.
That's right. That's right.
Pretty much what he's saying. It's not like some universal, always applicable statement, right? I mean, plenty of police officers have been blessed enough to carry a gun and then retire from the police force.
That's right.
So
and die of old age.
Yeah. So let's not push these kinds of things into some universal metaphysic principle that operates in the universe, that if you carry a weapon and have to use it on occasion, that you're definitely going to die by that. That's not how that works, right? You can't create a metaphysical principle of the universe out of that statement. So I think it's very circumstantial. And when you think about the principle of loving your neighbor, you've got lots of neighbors, and I do think that you can get to the place to where, if you're trying to defend others, for example, you're loving them by protecting them, but you are also, and this is going to, when you said, if it didn't shock people enough that the most loving thing you can do at the moment is pull the trigger, I want to support you on that, because sometimes the most loving thing that you can do for someone with a gun is shoot somebody. You can even love them by shooting them to prevent them from an act of greater evil. Yeah. If they're intending to seriously wound or kill or murder other people, you putting them down in self-defense, or, for the sake of others or even yourself, because you have to love your wife and your kids. They're your neighbors too, and they're depending on you to bring home bacon. The most loving thing you can do is to shoot that person. If they die, okay. If not, great. That's even better. But pulling that trigger is actually loving the person you're shooting, because you are preventing them from achieving their evil.
Yeah.
And that is a good thing. It's the last resort you want to have to use, but it is loving to prevent someone from doing something awful. And so, you can lovingly shoot somebody. And I know that's going to just, oh, how dare he? I can't believe no, it's true. And I'll go even further. When someone decides that they are intending malicious evil against others, and they want say I want to really try to kill you and your wife and your son, Tim, I'm a pretty terrible person because I have no good reason to, but there are people in this world that will just kill or murder people on the streets in cold blood over nothing. Right?
Yeah.
When that person has decided that the image of God in them is no longer worth anything to them, the most loving thing you can do for a person like that who has traded the image of God for, for a license that they give themselves to commit heinous evil is, I think it is affirming of the image of God that if you were to stop me and you were to shoot me and you were to kill me in my attempt to murder you and your family, what you have done is you have given my life a purpose as an example for others to not follow after my evil intents. And that is a greater purpose than the senseless murdering of you and your family that I was trying to do.
Yeah.
So it is actually life affirming to shoot somebody trying to senselessly murder people, because if they have nothing good left in them, nothing good, you can at least give their life some dignity as being an example to teach others to fear.
Yeah. I've never thought of it that way, but that's a good point.
Yeah. I mean, because it's very loving to do that, because they have discarded for themselves any sort of meaning and purpose and image bearing, because they just want to go senselessly murder other people. And to shoot them in self-defense is loving and honoring them as still being human, even if they tried to rid themselves of it completely, and you gave them a meaning in their death that they would not have given you and yours. Right? If I'm just trying to senselessly murder you, I'm not giving any meaning to that. I'm just animalistic behavior.
Right.
But if you shoot me in defense, you've not only loved your family as your neighbors, right? You have loved me enough to give me some sort of meaning in my death that I was not trying to give you and yours.
Yeah. So with that in mind, let me read a couple paragraphs or so here from the article, Love Thy Neighbor and Pack Thy Heat. I talk about properly basic beliefs. And so I gave a bunch of scripture to support. And what was cool about this article is, I was actually sending a lot of this as I was working on some of these original drafts. I was sending it to Mike Lacona and getting his take on it. I'd have some questions about Greek. So I was working with him to try to understand some of this. And so he helped me a lot with this. And one thing that he pointed out is we could make a case for this all day long using Old Testament passages. Excuse me. But a lot of people think that the New Testament changes everything. So one thing I wanted to do with this article is to give New Testament support for Christians carrying handguns and firearms. And so we made two cases. I made a case from Jesus and I made a case from Paul. But then apart from that, from scripture, I wanted to talk about just properly basic beliefs. And so I said, furthermore, and apart from scripture, it just seems to be a properly basic belief that if one is in a position to defend their wife or children from the attack of a mountain lion, then a good husband and father would fight the mountain lion. In fact, a good husband and father is willing to kill the mountain lion if need be, even if the man is an animal lover and does not want to kill the wild animal. I do love animals. I will hunt. I don't like it. My son is an awesome hunter, by the way. That's his job. He's a hunting guide up in Montana now. But I prefer just to shoot steel targets and paper targets, but because I do love animals. But with that said, I'm willing to if I need to. Now, I go on and I said this. Not only is it good to stop the violent attack against a man's family, but he should also be willing to die in the process of fighting for the safety of his loved ones. Jesus seems to agree when he says, Greater love has no one than this, to lay down one's life for one's friends. John 15:13. So if this is the case, when it comes to the attack of a wild animal, why would it no longer be acceptable to defend your loved ones from the attack of an evil man acting like a wild animal? And then I quote J.P. Moreland and Norman Geisler, and they say this, quote, to permit murder when one could have prevented it is morally wrong. To allow a rape when one could have hindered it is an evil. To watch an act of cruelty to children without trying to intervene is morally inexcusable. In brief, not resisting evil is an act of omission, and an evil of omission can be just as evil as an evil of commission. Any man who refuses to protect his wife and children against a violent intruder fails them morally, end quote. So, yeah, I mean, that last sentence, any man who refuses to protect his wife and children against a violent intruder fails them morally. And you're not only failing your family morally, you're failing God, because he created you on purpose and for the specific purpose of love, and you are not loving your family if you don't protect them. The Bible tells us that love always protects. And so we've got to protect our family, and we're supposed to love our neighbors. We ought to be ready to protect our neighbors. And even those who consider us enemies, who are trying to kill us, it's not like we want to kill them, but we will if we have to, because that's the most loving thing to do. And let me say this, I'm on my church security team, and I done a lot of training with these guys. We take it very seriously, and I teach them the theology behind what we're doing, the theology behind protecting the church. Several years ago, we were having a meeting, and one of the guys, he pipes up in the middle of our meeting, and he said, "Hey, there's some raghead that comes in here. I wouldn't hesitate to light him up," or something like that. And I said, in front of everybody, I scolded him. I said, "Stop it." I said, "Stop that right now." I said, "Nobody's on this team unless you learn to love everybody. You learn to love those who would consider you to be an enemy. You learn to love the person who wants to kill you, and the only reason you would shoot them is if it's the most loving thing to do in that specific situation." Why? Because you love that person. No matter what he looks like, no matter where he's from, you love him. And I said, I don't want anybody on the security team who has not grappled with this and really understood what it means to love your neighbors and what it means to love your enemies. And he was radically transformed after that. I mean, he really went and did some soul searching. He's a completely different guy now and one of the best on our team as far as I'm concerned. But I just push it so much. And a good police officer would do that too. They're supposed to serve and protect. And so the only reason, so we want good police officers with guns, right? We don't want bad people with with guns, but in an objective sense, a good person lives and corresponds to the objective purpose of life, and that's love. And that applies to police officers, that applies to civilians who are carrying, it applies to everything. So sorry I've talked so much there. What do you think about that?
I can imagine how strange it sounds. These Christian apologists have lost their minds. They're saying it's loving to shoot people.
All right.
But yes, it shows that you are where I was, about 12 years ago, and not having thought about this in a mature fashion, because yes, it can be loving to have to shoot somebody, and you can love them. I already gave an example of how you're giving them more dignity in death than they were intending to give you.
Yeah.
That is loving. Loving is not always sunshine and rainbows, right? It's not always happy thoughts. So yeah, it can be, and I'm sorry if that shocks you, but you're not thinking about this correctly, because in my mind, you have more than one neighbor. And if you can shoot to not kill, you probably should do that if you can eliminate the threat.
I'll say this, just tactically speaking, it's not wise to say, try to shoot somebody in the leg or the hand or something like that.
Because they're still able enough to shoot you back.
Well, not even that. It's that you're probably going to miss and not do anything. You're probably just going to get yourself killed. What you want to do is just aim for center mass, and because it's the biggest target right here, right? And so in that situation, your adrenaline's going crazy. Have fun trying to hit the guy's foot. Not going to happen. It's so hard. I'll tell you this: when adrenaline's flying and somebody's coming at you, have fun hitting a guy that's 6 feet away. Not as easy as what the movies make it look like.
Right.
I want to pull my hair out if I had it.
So you're saying don't take Joe Biden's advice during a riot where he said shoot him in the leg.
No, that's anybody who's done any kind of law enforcement will tell you that's horrible advice. Joe Biden has no idea what he's talking about. Don't get me started. Yeah. No, you want to, and look, and also the goal is not to kill. The goal is to neutralize. The goal is to stop the attack, right? And now sometimes death comes along with that. Sometimes it doesn't.
Yeah, I noticed that in a lot of cases, the only way that you can make sure that they are no longer a threat is to basically unload the entire magazine into somebody. And that's why they do that. They're like, did they have to fire so many shots? Sometimes, yes, because some people keep coming at you after they've been shot. So,
yeah, I mean, so I used to, before I got into theology, I was a criminal justice major. I did criminal justice for a couple of years. And some of the things that I saw and read about would just are very scary. Yeah, one, especially if somebody's all jacked up on drugs, one bullet's not. You might give them a death blow, a death shot. It's not going to stop them. We've seen police officers get killed after they've delivered a death blow, a death shot. But since they're all, I mean, the drugs just keep them going. And so, and that's, so a lot of the ammunition have changed over the years too, because of that. So, police officers for a long time went to 40 caliber or bigger. But then, actually here, I've got a little magazine right here. So here's so this is a round, if you can see this here. This is from Hornady, and this is a 9mm round, and it's their technology. The FBI started going to these, and the Hornady factory is just right down the road from me, just about 40 miles from me. And I know a lot of the guys that work there. Been in the owner's house, but this is, I mean, the technology now with these their self-defense hollow points, they do much better than the ammunition of the past. So for anybody caring for self-defense, highly recommend the Hornady ammo. But anyway, to your point, usually more than one round is required. And in the heat of the moment, I've never been there. I hope I never am. But I've talked to officers who've just said, I mean, once that happens, I mean, the usually find yourself unloading the entire magazine when your life is on the line.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's a lot going on there, and it's not as easy as movies make it look. Like you'll see guys.
You're not going to be shooting guns out of people's hands and all of that stuff.
No.
Even within like 6 yards or so, you're going to be lucky to hit them. If you're not, I mean, target practice is one thing, but I mean, if you're in the heat of it and you have never been in that position before, your first time, you don't know what you're going to hit or not hit.
Oh, yeah. So this is what I recommend when you train. Don't just stand in one spot and line up your sights and see what you can hit 25 feet away or whatever. No, I try to get your adrenaline going. Drop down and do 5 to 10 burpees, and then try to hit center mass 10 feet, 6 feet, 10 feet away. See how well you do.
I
That's going to be, and in a real life situation, most of the time that civilians would use their pistol is 6 feet and closer. Unlike police officers. Now there's some times where that might change. Say you're at Walmart shopping with your family, and then you start hearing shots. I mean, you might have, or if you're on a church security team and somebody comes in and try to shoot the pastor and you're, 25 feet away, you might have to take that longer shot. But
somebody actually did that here in Indiana at a mall. He was like barely 20 years old or something, just a young guy.
I think he was 21. Yeah.
Yeah.
And now I'll tell you, that story is amazing because that was at a fairly long distance. And I think he hit 8 out of 10 shots or something like that, which is, I mean, most Green Berets wouldn't do that. I think there was maybe some divine help going on there or something. Cause that's,
you haven't ever been, not much else to do in Indiana, my friend.
Yeah, right.
So, I mean, I don't imagine it's much different out in Kearney, so that's why you're probably out on the range a lot too. So
yeah.
Bringing up burpees, though, I do want to switch gears because, like I said, God is having God in your life. I agree with you that Christians are the most qualified to be carrying firearms, right?
Yeah.
And having a full understanding of loving God and loving your neighbor as yourself. And so you mentioned burpees. A key to that is self-defense. You may have to save your life. And in today's world, it's getting, I've told people for several years now, 1, move out of cities.
Yep.
2, buy guns and learn how to use them. Like I did not fire my first gun just on a whim. I signed up for the handgun training course and took the course, the handgun safety training course. And then the instructor took us to the range as part of the course. Right. So I had never handled a gun in my life. I wasn't just going to go willy nilly and I wanted to learn how to safely operate it. And so I took a course, but people should do that kind of thing if you have no experience with it and buy guns. And then my other thing was learn to farm. People should really learn to farm whatever land they can either, if you live in an apartment, find a neighbor and help them out, turn their backyard. I've got a homestead in my backyard. I don't have a whole large backyard, but I'm still eating green beans from last year. Nice. But you need to do those kind of things. And I have chickens,
Nice.
But another thing that people need to do is they need to be fit. And I used to be fit in my early 20s, all the way up into my early 30s, kind of let myself go until my early 40s. And now I'm going on 5 years. But, you're into theology. And as you get older, your diet, metabolism slows down. You start reading a lot more books. It's very easy to start consuming large amounts of food while you're reading all those books. And before you know it, I had, and then, wife, kids, all that stuff. I had ballooned up. I'm only 5'8", and I had ballooned up to 220 pounds from 145 pounds.
Wow.
That's 75 pounds. And then I got called out by Braxton Hunter's dad, Harold Hunter.
No way.
Yeah. He said, son, you're getting fat, and that's why you're having all your health problems.
Oh,
you need to do something. You need to do something about that. Quit being fat. It's like,
I didn't realize it was Braxton's dad that provided the catalyst in your life.
But unlike Braxton, I listened to his father and did something about it. But you were an inspiration because I was like, no way can Tim be the only jacked apologist in the world. So I had to go. So you were one of the people who kind of inspired me. Adam Harwood staying in really good shape inspired me, even though he does a lot of running and there was no way I was going to do any of that nonsense. And several others, Dr. David Allen from Southwestern, he had gone through his own transformation, I don't know, 5-6 years ago. So there's a lot of people that were either in good shape or getting themselves into good shape. And I was like, now I'm being fat shamed by my boss's dad. And by the way, I don't believe in fat shaming unless you ask me to do it. Like Braxton has asked me to do it because he likes the reinforcement. Not that it actually has worked, but I don't believe in fat shaming for everybody because not everybody has that kind of constitution where they can handle it, but
Right.
I do, right? I mean, I'm not offended by it, right? He didn't offend me.
Yeah, I've asked my wife to tell me if she thinks that if I ever start slipping, if she thinks I could be doing a little bit better, to let me know.
Right. I mean,
Yeah.
but that's the thing. I've talked about this in the past. Fitness is important if for no other reason than God gave you this body to steward over.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But also, in addition to stewardship, it is also when the Bible says love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind. What does Luke add to that equation? Strength.
Yeah.
Well, you need to have some strength to love God with, right?
Right.
And I basically didn't have any. And I was like, well, whatever strength that I have, am I loving God? And so I had to look at this as a stewardship issue to where I was not fit to do the tasks that God had called me to do, to be a good husband, to be a good father, to be able to keep up with my kids and to be able to do all sorts of things that I should be able to do. In the ancient world, everyone was basically eating organic and walking everywhere. So, in Paul's day, a lot of people like to take out of context 1 Timothy 4:8, I always hear the joke that, well, bodily training is only of some value. It's only of little profit, right?
Uh-huh.
But godliness is a value of every way as it holds promise for the present life and the life to come.
Yeah.
Okay, so Paul is comparing bodily training in this life to godliness that has benefit in this life and the next one.
Right.
That's a comparative text.
Mm-hmm.
Paul's not comparing it to sitting around eating a bag of Takis while watching your favorite Marvel movie, right? Yeah. Compared to that, there is some profit in a bag of Takis in a Marvel movie, but compared to that in this life to physical training, it is of little value in comparison to the greater value of physical training. So look at what he's comparing before you make a judgment of Paul's statement here about bodily training.
And he's also saying that it's of value.
Yeah. Be as strong as the Proverbs 31 woman, fellas. She has strong arms. Are you as strong as the Proverbs 31 woman or not? Fella?
That's right.
I mean, so come on. But people ask me, well, is it a sin to be fat? No, it's not, believe it or not. I've heard people try to argue that it is, but it's no more a sin to be fat than it is to be bald like you and Braxton, or to be short like me, or to be tall, or to have blue eyes. It's not a sin to be in a state of you're overweight. However, it is not rocket science that tells us how one gets into that state. And it comes from gluttony and sloth.
Yeah.
Those things are sins.
Right.
And so being overweight for me was not a sin, but what was a sin was what led me, which was laziness and gluttony.
Mm-hmm.
And so that is where I had my problem. It was not, I'm fat, so I'm in sin because I'm fat. No, I'm in sin because I'm being lazy, a bad steward of my body, and eating more than I need. In Titus 1:12, Paul quotes the one of your own prophets said, Cretans are always liars, evil beasts, and lazy gluttons. The Gateris Argai, lazy glutton. That gaster word in Greek is referring to a belly or like a pregnant woman. There's no mystery what the Greek here is mean. And, it's the glutton has the result of the gaster, right? The belly that looks resembling a womb with a baby in it.
Wow.
And I wasn't stocky. You've seen my before picture, right?
Yeah.
I was not just stocky and big boned. It was like I looked like I was pregnant.
Yeah.
That's exactly what I looked like. It was all belly. And the reason I had gotten to that is because I was a glutton. I ate too much food than my body needed, and I was too lazy to burn off the food that I consumed. And one of the things, And one of the things that people have said to me is, okay, but I'm too busy to get. And I'm sitting here as not to toot my own horn, but I'm vice president of the 7th largest seminary on planet Earth. I had 2 kids in the house, and just because your kids move out doesn't mean they don't require your time and money. You know this, son of Montana. I need some money, right? So you have commitments in family life and work commitments and all that. So one of the things that I realized about my own life was this: I was busy. Being busy does not mean that you're not lazy. Right. Because lazy people find all sorts of things to busy themselves with. But what I was being gluttonous and lazy, and I needed to change that because it was destroying my health. And, when I started my fitness saga, I don't call it fitness journey. Fitness journeys are for women. Men do chronicles or sagas or epics or something like that. I was on 5 different medications. Within 6 months, I was on none.
Wow.
When I got that stuff. And so my thing about fitness is Christians need to take this seriously, because we are not being good stewards of our body if we can't do the things, the service to others without being winded, that God has called the church to be in service to our neighbors and our loved ones, take care of our families, to live as healthily and as long as we can, to be there for those who need us to be. And I look at videos. I follow a lot of people on Instagram, people with missing limbs, people with cerebral palsy who can deadlift more than I can. And I think to myself, what excuse did I have when these people are out there getting it done? And here I am destroying my body. And so even if I wanted to be the protector of my family, how can I if I'm getting winded from a flight of steps? And so I'm not my reason behind starting Theology Geek Fitness was because, having been on both sides of that, being unhealthy and healthy, it is a better way to steward your body. It is a better way to steward your mind. It is a better way to love God with all of your strength. And that is a reason. I'm not saying get jacked. I'm not saying get shredded. I'm not saying get swole. I'm not saying go run off and try to get TRT you don't need, or start slamming some, SARMs or Tren or whatever. But you should be reasonably healthy, because your body your body is a temple.
So I got several things I want to say. Number one, did you say that Trinity College of the Bible and Theological Seminary is the 7th biggest seminary in the world?
Yeah.
I had no idea.
Yeah.
That's pretty awesome. I'm honored to be a professor there anyway.
It was awesome when we were number 2. It was awesome when we were number 5. It was awesome when we were number 6, and now we're number 7.
I had no idea.
Yeah.
Wow. I never knew that we were even number 2. So anyway, that's pretty cool. All right. So
we've been here since 1969. I mean, we've been here for over 50 years. So we're old.
Very true.
We've been around. Been lots of different things.
So I want to talk about, you said, is it a sin to be fat? Well, we can also say, well, is it a sin to be too skinny? So that was, my DNA. What I was born with was I was the skinniest kid, not just the skinniest guy, but the skinniest human in my entire class for the majority of my school years before I graduated. I was so skinny that in middle school, I would get beat up and bullied all the time by the guys and the girls. One of the most humiliating days of my life was when 2 girls beat me up in front of everybody, and it was in a summer I was at the swimming pool, and 2 girls in my class started picking on me. And
those are stories you keep to yourself, my friend.
no, because it changed me. And
You got beat up by a
one of the girls,
girl. I've never let
yeah,
that
I did.
go.
No, that's fine. Because this was the old Tim. And and then another right after that, after school started, another guy beat me up in front of the whole class, and before school started one morning. And so that was also around the time when the Karate Kid came out. And I was just telling my mom, hey, if it worked for Daniel-san, maybe it'll work for me. And so we found a karate school for me to join, and that changed the trajectory of my life. 2 years later, the biggest guy in my class tried to fight me, or tried to, he's picking a fight with me, and I was doing everything to get out of it. But I've been training now for a couple years in karate, and I was running, I was hiding, trying to get away, and they dragged me out and throw me in the middle of this big circle after a basketball game one night in the cold tundra of Nebraska. Big circle around us. I tried to get out of the circle. All the guys would throw me back in. And so there I am. I was probably, what's that?
I've seen those. I would have been the guy in the circle throwing you back in.
Right.
I would have been the guy in the fight, but I would have been like, get back in there, weenie.
And I was the smallest. Yeah. I was the smallest guy in my class fighting the biggest guy in my class, and I knocked him out. And that changed everything. I remember all the guys that were throwing me back in there lifted me up on their shoulders, and they carried me back to my house, and everything was different after then.
Oh, so you were Rudy at that point.
Hey, and let me tell this turn and burn here. I work my legs every day, buddy. And I can kick really hard. You don't want to get kicked with my legs. My legs just don't get big. But listen, that's to my point. This is what I want to
problem.
Yeah, this is what I want to say.
Your wife probably has better calves than I have. And I train legs twice a week, and, and my calves will not grow.
So this is what I want to say to Turn and Burn's point here. Do the best with what you've got. If you don't do that, that's where the sin is. Some of us have DNA that are, we have to work really hard to get some gains and to put some muscle on. And some parts of my body, my biceps work better than my calves for some reason. I don't know why. But I lift my legs every week. But it's easier for me to get 6-pack abs at 50 years old than it is for me to get my legs big. But as a martial artist, I mean, I made sure I was definitely the hardest kicker in Nebraska for a long time. Now, with that said, there's some people that their DNA being fat is the default for them, right? Now they got to do the best with what they've got, right? It's going to be harder for them to get 6-pack abs, but they can still do the best with what they've got. Skinnier guys, go ahead.
Genetics plays a role in this. So some people are going to be genetically predisposed to have a larger fat cell count than others, right? Some people are going to have more slow twitch fibers and muscle. Some are going to have more fast twitch, and genetics kind of determines. So if I was a short, squatty guy like Eric Hernandez, for example, where I was short, barrel chested, stubby arms, I'd be a bench pressing machine because he has the genetics to be a bench pressing machine.
And he is. That dude's strong.
He travels this far. Whereas when I bench press, my chest starts here, my arm is way out here. I'm traveling a considerable more distance than Eric Hernandez does. Yeah. And so because of my frame, I would rather do like dumbbell presses than a bench press, right? And use but I mean, his genetics, and your genetics are going to you're going to find yourself like, I was talking to my friend Derek last night, 6'2", 6'3", somewhere around there, real tall, beanpole type, skinny dude. Mm-hmm. There's a reason why he loves to run. and he has the physique of a runner because his genetics lend itself for him to enjoy it more. I talked to Leighton Flowers, and Leighton Flowers hates doing pull-ups. Why? Because he's tall and lanky, and he would rather do pull. So the type of things that you can do and the type of physique you're going to get, we don't talk about this enough. A lot of it is going to be related to what you're genetically predisposed. Practicing basketball does not make people 6'8".
That's right.
Right.
That's right.
I'm 5'8" and white, and I could try to practice basketball, and I'm never going to be 6'8" and be able to, dunk it with ease. It's just never going to happen. I don't have the biometrics to do it. So genetics plays a role in this, but genetics should not play such a role to where you use it as a crutch. And like you said,
right.
People have a responsibility to steward their body the best they can with the genetics they have.
Let's bring up William Lane Craig as an example.
Yeah.
All right. This guy, he's in his mid 70s now. I can't remember the name of the condition he was born with, I think Charcot syndrome or something like that. Right. He's got a genetic disability that affects his limbs, his legs, his arms. He wanted to be he had this competitive desire as a young man in high school to be an athlete, but he could not do it physically. So thanks a lot. Turn and burn. Okay. But yeah, Dr. Craig then, how God uses our sufferings for good. Dr. Craig took that same competitive desire from athletics into debate, and the rest is history. Now, with that said, Dr. Craig, with his genetic disabilities, works out every day, right? He does the best with what he's got. In fact, I think it was
even in his 60s, he was pretty jacked for, just 10 years ago. He was still looking really jacked. I think there was a video of him working out, and dude was pretty jacked. He doesn't look it because he's got a small frame, right? I don't look like I work out unless I take my shirt off.
Right.
And I wear medium-sized t-shirts so that I can fill my sleeves, right? That's why I stopped wearing. But when you see William Lane Craig in a tank top in an exercise video, which she put one out, I don't know, it was like 10 years ago, somewhere in the I want to say late 2000s or somewhere
around the wife beater. Wearing the wife beater tank top, right?
Yeah, you've seen that. Where did we see that?
Oh, I think what I saw was maybe it was right after he got done working out. He was at his desk working, and Jan probably took the shot, but that went out, and people were like, "Dude, the guy's kind of ripped for an older guy, right?
For a guy in his 60s."
And I've seen another picture of him where he was wearing a white t-shirt under a sport coat, and he took his sport coat off over his shoulder, and you could see his bicep. And you're like, wow, okay, the guy. And then I saw him back in November, and I said, man, Bill, you've been hitting the gym hard. And he goes, well, Tim, I do. Every morning I get up and I do my devotions in the Greek, and then I go hit the gym before I start doing my hard philosophical thinking of the day. So every day he's working out, hitting the weights before he starts work. And don't tell me that somebody's busier than he is, right? But he follows a schedule, and he wakes up early so that he makes sure he can work out every day. Here's my point. He's got genetic disabilities, and he's honoring God by doing the best with what God's given him. And now in his mid 70s, he continues to work out and is an inspiration. What an example he is. Do the best with what you've got. If Dr. Craig can do it, anybody can do it. And you and I just turned 50. You're closing in on it.
Yeah.
A lot of people think, hey, well, once you're out of your 20s, it's just all downhill from there. And you and I are both evidence, no, don't stop.
No.
Always do the best with what you've got. Colossians 3:23, everything you do it the best you can to God's glory. And that's what I try to do with fitness.
Yeah, that's what I try to do too. And I started when I started my saga back in 2019. I started simple with walking and some light dumbbell exercises at the
Yeah,
house before I even
that was smart.
joined the gym, because I was not in good enough shape. And even when I walked into the lamest gym of ever that you should boycott now, Planet Fitness was the gym I was going to. I remember I put 25-pound plates on either side of the bench. And there you have to bench with a Smith machine, right? And so the bar was
Yep.
not even 45; they're 20-pound bars. And I
Right.
started at rock bottom, right? I didn't care. I
Mhm.
needed to do this.
Yeah.
And then when the gyms had closed down in March 2020, that was not even a year from when I started, and I was already in good habits. And then that's when I switched to trying to figure out how I can stay in shape at home, because I couldn't go to the gym. And I discovered resistance bands and body weight training and suspension training and just dumbbell work and getting the most out of leverages and all that kind of thing. And I've never rejoined the gym. And last night towards the end of our video, I started talking about, have you ever heard that people make the argument that yoga is paganism?
Yeah.
Yeah. Because of
Yeah.
the
I've heard
Hindu
that.
connection. Even if you know
Mhm.
nothing about Hindu and you're just stretching, they say you shouldn't do those stretches because you're going to let the
Right.
demons. Well, I mean, you could make the same argument. I was making the same argument that gyms are gay. They're pagan and gay because gymnasium in the ancient Greece world, everyone trained naked. And we know about the Greeks and their predilections. So, I mean, you can kind of make the same. That's why I tell people I work out of my office. I have got a weight stack over here. I've got suspension trainers. I work out at home. I work out. But if you want to go to the gym, I'm not a legalist. Go to the gym. You know, all that. Do what you like, but find something that you do like to stay active. I don't care. I don't care how people train. I care that they do, so that they can be loving God with all of their strength.
Yeah.
And if you're as apologists, we talk all the time. Apologists love to say the mind, the mind, the mind, the mind.
Mhm.
Do you know how much having a sound body makes your mind more sound?
All right.
Like
Mhm.
when I got healthier, it's like a brain fog that was with me. I let go of. I got better
Oh
sleep.
yeah.
I improved my diet. I stopped eating this processed garbage and got my diet straight. And dieting, I'm just gonna say it. It sucks. When I was going through my weight loss, it sucks to diet. It really does. But you know what else sucks? Dying. Being on 6 different medications. That sucks too.
Yeah.
Choose your struggle. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Choose your
No,
struggle.
to your brain fog comment. So I've been all right. So I told you that I was a criminal justice major for a while. Well, I actually switched during my undergrad. Then I switched it, and I wound up graduating with a physical education and health degree. And I wanted to be a coach and all that. And I got into ministry, so never used it. But the fitness aspect of it really stuck with me. And so I've been staying active ever since I was in college. But I remember when I went to Biola, and I was so focused on getting good grades there. So when it was time for my first time, we were hitting all the finals, and I was, I said, okay, with finals coming up, I'm going to take 2 weeks off from the gym just so I can study. And what do you think happened? As I stopped working out for those 2 weeks, by the time it was hard to think, right? I was like, I realized at that point, I'm going to think better if I feel better physically. I needed to move. I had to burn some calories. And the more I moved, I had to make sure I just get up earlier to get my workout in. I found my brain working better at the same time. And so I do think it helps when you're staying physically fit. If you want to be a good thinker in apologetics and philosophy and theology, then you better be working out. You don't have to be in the Olympics or anything like that, but do some physical moving. It's going to help the way you think.
Yeah, and anyone who is in a situation like I was in, the key is to get started immediately, and don't talk to me about
Mhm.
you're busy. You could die. That's one thing. I mean,
Yeah.
obesity related diseases are a killer in the United States. And I want people to live happy, fruitful, healthy lives. I changed my diet. Diet's a lot of it. If you're just training for aesthetics, you want to look good. That's not a bad motivation because aesthetics matter, right? But that shouldn't be your only
Right.
motivation. Your motivation primarily should be health.
Hmm.
And we should not buy into the fundamentally same lie that men can be women is the same lie that says you can be healthy at any size. That's
Yeah.
anti-science
Right.
denying nonsense
Hmm.
too, that the church has bought in hook, line, and sinker, and we need to
Yeah.
rid the church of this idea
That's
because
right.
Christians should be happy, healthy warriors for Christ. They should not be gluttonous slobs, And
Yeah. And it's not
I
like
hate to sound
you're not preaching health and wealth. You're just saying we ought to do the best we can with what we've got.
yeah.
If you can get in shape, do it. Right.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
if paraplegics can, if you go follow some paraplegic and cerebral palsy bodybuilders on Instagram, and that motivates me more than Chris Bumstead because I will never be Chris Bumstead, right? But when I see people
Yeah.
who are in way worse off, uh, you know, differently abled people, to use the modern terminology, get out there and grind. I have no excuse, even at 47, which I mean, at 47, I'm in better shape than a lot of people half my age in America these days. But,
Oh yeah.
but for your health, for body fitness is spiritual fitness in my mind, because you improve one, you will improve the other.
Yeah.
Your sleep gets better. And that
Yep.
means when you have better sleep, it means your awake hours are more productive, which means
Hmm.
you find time for all kinds of things because you're not lolling about, right?
That's
And
right.
so my devotional life has gotten a lot better. People say they miss the old Pritchett Prime because I'm a lot nicer when I'm thinner, and more healthy. But yeah, you just everything improves, and to love the Lord your God with your mind is important. Your heart's important, but your
Yeah.
strength is also important. And you need to have
Hmm.
strength to love the Lord your God with. And that's how you can love your neighbor. Because I used to never want to go out there and, oh, they're going to be spending all day re-roofing a house, or they're going to be spending all day carrying out trash and picking up garbage in the neighborhood, or to, uh, clean up a little old lady from the church. Her yard needs, a lot of help and all this stuff. I used to never want to volunteer for that because I would get tired, you know, and I was having heart issues. And I was thinking, I don't want to go do that, because when I first started walking, you can ask several people that were in our old Marco Polo group. I would walk in circles around my house because I was too scared to get too far in case my heart messed up on me. So
Really.
I was walking in circles in my backyard. It took me 2 months to be able to walk my neighborhood because I was too scared to wander too far from the house because of my heart condition at the time, my
Wow.
blood pressure, that. Yeah. I
And now
mean,
you got six pack abs.
yes. Uh, that has to do with diet and all of that. So don't just think if you do a
Well,
million
yeah.
crunches you're gonna have. No, you've got to eliminate your body fat percentage and get that really low, and that has a lot to do with
Which,
diet.
which
But
has
even
been
if you
good
don't
for
have,
your heart.
yeah, but even if you don't have but you don't want to get too shredded like these Instagram influencers, or your testosterone plummets, you're cold all the time, and you're open
Yeah.
to, they do that for competition, but they don't stay that way
Yeah.
year round. Don't be
No.
but you can keep visible abs year round and maintain a healthy 12 to 14% body fat and still have visible abs if your genetics allow it. If your genetics don't allow it, that doesn't mean you can let yourself go, right?
Yeah.
Like you said, work with the genetics you have. My genetics
Hmm.
means that I'm going to cap out size unless I use drugs, and my
Right.
neurological and physical strength is going to max out at some point. You're going to hit a genetic ceiling, and
Hmm.
most people
Oh yeah.
you're going to get 80 to 90% of all your gains in the first 3 years. Your body can transform very
Yeah.
quickly.
Yeah.
And then you're going to scrape to, you know, if you're training for muscle and you're training for hypertrophy, it's going to be the next 10 years to gain millimeter by millimeter after you get like most of your newbie gains and all of that. So if you stick to it,
I hit that genetic ceiling a long time ago. So
you've
now
been
my
training
goal,
for decades. Yeah.
right. So now my goal is to say, how long can I hold on to the ceiling?
Right.
How long can I stay there? And so that's become my challenge. But yeah, so I really haven't changed much in the last 30 years. Which is, I'm 50 years old now, and I look pretty much the same. What's that?
The thing is, and you stay in the gym anyway, because the effort you put in to get your physique is the effort you have to put in to maintain it.
To stay there. That's right.
So even if you're in maintenance, and I'm getting closer and closer to maintenance, you have to work just as hard or you can regress. And so my encouragement to everybody is, if you're not fit, get fit. Everything improves. Everything. Right. Your mental life, your spiritual life, your physical life, your health, and all of those areas fires on more cylinders, and you'll feel better about yourself. And by the way,
and let me say, you did the right thing by starting slow. If you're not fit out there, don't jump in and push yourself as hard as you can the first day. Ease into it and try to do a little bit more every day. But you don't want to kill yourself the first day, so you don't go. I know somebody that wanted to get into shape. They hit the gym, and they hadn't been in the gym for a long, long time. They hit the gym so hard doing the same stuff they did 5 years earlier, and they got hurt, and they never went back again. So ease into it, but make a commitment to make it your lifestyle.
And if you're 35 or older, don't follow the Instagram influencers who are going to do things you'll never be able to do. Follow practical people that have good advice or whatever. But really, if you're over 35, what I've learned, because I got in shape in my early 40s, that when I was in shape in my 20s and early 30s, I didn't care about things like shoulder mobility, But as you get older, stretching and mobility so that you can injury prevention becomes a lot more important when you're throwing weight around, whether it's, barbell, dumbbells, sandbags, whatever, or just doing certain body weight exercises, your joints and all that stuff I think about now that I never thought about when I used to be in shape in my 20s and 30s. But yeah, ease into it, and don't think that you have to get shredded or jacked or you have to have 6-pack abs or whatever, but don't think that it's a sin or it's just all vanity because you believe that aesthetics and matter, especially in your marriage. I mean, we're all Christians here, so I'm going to talk about this. My wife loved me just as much when I was heavy. No, I mean, she did. and our special time never changed.
Well, I'm sure she loved you just as much, but she probably enjoys you a lot more now.
Thank you. Yes. Okay. Everything in that department got a lot better too. Magically, the woman who loved me the same, we have a better we have more special time than we use. How did that happen? Right? It's no mystery. That's right. So that's everything, right. And by everything, I mean everything for those of you who have stuck out this long, you know what I mean by everything gets better. And if you're not married, it'll help you be more attractive to the there's nothing wrong with these kinds of things, and don't listen to people. Oh, you're so vain. No, it's not vanity. It's trying to master your body like Paul disciplines his body. There's no big deal. Now you can become vain. So it's always good to have people in your life like me to knock you down a peg. Be happy to do it. Don't become vain, but don't think that you're being vain just because you want to look better. There's nothing wrong with trying to be your best self. And aesthetics do matter. And the more attractive Christians can make themselves, the more we could be attractive to outsiders that want to see that we're different than our culture. And that's one way that we can do it, being fit and healthy in a culture of completely unhealthy people.
I try to do the best with what I've got for God's glory. I try to do the best with what I've got just for me. I feel better. And I try to do the best the best with what I've got for my wife. I want her to find me attractive. So, and I've got a lot of work to do in that department. So part of it is for her. And it, like, yeah, it does. It helps, right? It helps.
It helps. And so, yeah, I'm not here to try to make anyone feel bad. If I did, I'm not sorry, because I'm trying to encourage you, because I want you to understand that, look, I'm not Chris Bumstead. I'm not 5-time Olympia champion, right? I'm not even Tim Stratton. I'm 5'8". I could never be Tim Stratton even. Though I've got better
fighters are 5'8".
Yeah. I mean, but I have better aesthetics in the torso and abs area, I think. But again, that's but if you saw me before, I used to look like I was pregnant. If you see, I'm telling you, I have average genetics. I do not have good genetics for this. I don't. And so if I can have mediocre genetics and still get an aesthetically appealing body that's fit and can move a decent weight around and can, stay relatively in shape for a man who's 47, there's no reason why anyone else with mediocre genetics couldn't do at least as good as I'm doing, if not way better. And I want people to do way better, like Eric Hernandez has better genetics than I do. But Eric Hernandez's Taco Bell habit is not stewarding his body like he should, and I'm calling him out right here and right now.
Okay, well, let's bring up diet really quick, because diet's probably more important, right? You need both. You need both physical exercise and diet. But if you're going to say one was more important than the other, it's probably diet. And that's tough for me, because I love food. I love pizza. I love tacos. I love nachos. I love them, right? But the key is I eat tons of salads and I eat tons of vegetables, eat a lot of meat. But it's still good to treat yourself. I have a cheat day every week. I don't know what you do.
Well, cheat meal. Here's what I tell people: be good most of the time. And if you're good most of the time, you can out-train a bad meal. You cannot out-train a bad diet, but you can out-train a bad meal.
Nice.
So have a bad meal every now and then.
Yeah.
It's fine. Don't eat badly all the time, or you'll never out-train it. And then you're not going to be in a strongman competition, so there's no reason for you to have so much body fat, like these strongman competitors.
Right.
Who intentionally carry, and it's completely unhealtty for them.
Right,
and that's why there's not a lot of longevity in that sport, plus the steroids and everything else. But I think it's 70, people say it's 90% diet, 10%, exercise. No, but I would say it's about 70%.
Yeah.
Because you can put all the work in the gym you want to, you can even increase your muscle mass, and yet you still have a lot of excess body fat, which is bad for your heart. It's bad for your gut health. It's bad for your cardiovascular system on a whole. It's also, it's just bad for your appearance and your self-confidence, no matter how much you can lift. It's amazing how much my confidence went up after I got rid of 75 pounds and got down to about 12% body fat. And so I want this kind of joy for everyone. Yeah. And it's not ego. It's not vanity. And you got to be on guard for those. I'm not saying you don't, but people go so overboard to lecture people like us about vanity that they've used that as a crutch to not look their best. Right. Yeah. I consider diet and exercise like I consider showering and brushing your teeth. It's hygiene.
Right. Yeah. Right.
Treat your diet like hygiene. Treat your exercise routine like hygiene. It's just something that you do. Just like brushing your teeth is something you do. You don't even have to make a big deal out of it. I work out 5 days a week. It takes no more than 40 minutes a day. And most of that 40 minutes is actually resting between sets. Right?
Right.
So, I mean, it's not complicated. This is not rocket science. And I have a whole channel, Theology Geek Fitness, for all you theology geeks who need to get in shape. There's a lot of information there. I try to pass on the best information I can, because I want the best for everyone to live longer, barring an accident. And I want you to all do better than me.
Yeah. Let me add to what you said there. So I told you I got my undergrad degree in physical education and health, and I'll never forget the last class of the last semester of my last year at school. And my professor, Ed Scantling, was teaching that class. He was also my advisor, also the wrestling coach at UNK, and great guy. And something he said in that class stuck with me, and it was just like, I've probably thought about it almost every day since. He said, physical fitness is not guaranteed to add years to your life, but it is guaranteed to add life to your years.
Amen.
And then he said, physical fitness will probably also add years to your life, but it's not guaranteed to. You never know what's going to happen. But no matter what happens, if you live another year or another 100 years, physical fitness will add life to whatever amount of years you have left. And
yes,
I've that stuck with me. I've lived by that ever since. And so even though I got out of that field and went into theology, I took that with me. And I'm like, I'm going to add life to my years by doing the best with what I've got. And so if I can pass that on to anybody too, I want to encourage you out there. Don't feel like you have to look like me or Pritchett. You might have completely different DNA, so that would not be possible. But do the best with what you've got, and you will feel better. Life will become more enjoyable. You'll be more enjoyable to be around, and you will add life to your years. And do it for God's glory, right? Don't let it become an idol. Don't let the way you look or even the way you feel become an idol. I mean, Jonathan, even doing ministry can become idols to us if we're not careful. It's happened to me before. I've realized I was making teaching people about God more important than God in my life in the past.
Sure.
So it's always important to evaluate and analyze what's going on in your life. So don't make physical fitness your idol, but realize that you need to do the best with what you've got to honor God with it. Do the best with your body that God's given you with it. You take your car to get the oil changed because you realize you need to take care of your car, right? You need to take care of the car that God's given you, right? I'm a substance dualist. That means I believe that you're a soul, an immaterial soul created in the image of God who has a body. And one day your body will die and you're going to survive the death of your body and you'll get a new one. Well, look, in the meantime, just like you're going to get a new car, right? Take care of your car you got now, even though you're not going to have it forever. Take care of the body that you've got right now so that you can do more ministry, so that you can get more work done, so that you can love your wife better, so
she'll love you better.
She'll love you better, right? And you're going to like it.
Maybe
right?
not more, but better.
That's right. So, and just don't feel like you got to go 100% on your first day. Ease your way into it. Say, you know what? Today's going to be the first day I'm going to go to the gym, and I'm just going to ease into it and get on Pritchett's Facebook group. Learn some good ways to ease into it and get some different ideas of different workout programs. What's best for your body type, and let's work on this together. We want to see you. We want to see you
both
flourish.
of us are in that group to motivate people.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very positive group. The only people we rag on are the people that we know are cool with it, and but mostly it's a lot of fun. It's Theology Geek Fitness Facebook group. A lot of encouragement there, a lot of accountability, which is important too. If I see Tim's doing better than me, it causes me to. I can't be outdone by Tim of all people. So
yeah, it's some righteous. I don't know.
And what you said about idolatry, don't be so scared that it could become an idol that you don't do it at all either.
Right.
It's like the vanity thing. Don't let people say that because you think aesthetics matter that all of a sudden you're vain. That it could become an idol doesn't mean anything can become an idol. For me, food had become an idol, which is why I looked like food had become my idol. So anything that but you do this when you prioritize your reasons why you do it, and you can include looking better as one of those reasons without being vain.
Right.
Once you realize you're doing it for God's glory, that to me is the loving God with your strength and mind together and your heart all directed towards the right object, which is Christ, and to serve him better. And when you do that, I don't think you have to worry about idolatry or vanity or whatever. I mean, you should be on guard for it, but typically you find your motivation in other things, which are Christ-centered. And so there is a Christ-centered way to pursue fitness and health, and we should all do that. Before we get off, I want to ask you one more question, since you had mentioned your Biola degree and not going to the gym. Yeah. Does your Biola degree say the words highest honors on it?
Oh, it does. Yes.
Okay. Darn. Because mine does, and I wanted to get on to you if yours didn't. Okay.
I had straight A's.
There you go. Of course.
Straight A's. Yeah. Yeah.
Good job. Well, just to let you know that means Biola is not hard, that two of us can graduate with A's and highest honors. So not the best advertisement for the seminary or for Biola there, buddy. But
well, no, I think both you and I worked really hard while we were there. And with that in mind, Biola initially rejected my application because my GPA at UNK was not high enough.
Wow.
And so I
graduated cum laude from Liberty, so mine was.
Oh, did you? Yeah. So yeah, I had to beg them, and I said, look, I said, I believe that God has transformed me by the renewing of my mind. Romans 12:2. I said, this is very important to me because I'm a youth pastor and my kids are believing the lies of atheism. I said, give me a chance. I'll be the hardest working student you've got. And I said, I promise I'll get straight A's, but put me on probation and just see. I said, I promise. So they said, okay, we're going to give you a shot. And
but if you want a real apologetics education, you can learn from both Dr. Stratton and myself, and Dr. Braxton Hunter, and plenty of others, Dr. Flowers.
Yeah.
A lot of great professors at Trinity, which I have to say that our apologetics program is better than Biola's. You know why? Because I did everything in our program that they did right, and I do nothing in their program that they did wrong, which was more than what we do. And we're instantly better just by that much. So yeah, Tim, what do you got coming up on your channel for people to check out? Look forward to.
Oh man, well, I've been working a lot on the free will thing. I'm currently editing a book right now with several scholars. So every day I'm proofreading and making suggestions for edits and additions. But some of these essays, these chapters that are coming in, are just blowing my mind. It's such a joy. I'm hanging on every word that I'm reading. So we've got this book coming out, in the not too distant future, where we're really focused on arguments from reason and the importance of libertarian freedom. So this is, in my wheelhouse with the free thinking arguments that I advance, and just looking at the different ways to argue, and just really how this is really pointing not just to the fact that you have the libertarian freedom to think carefully so that you can know the truth about ultimate reality. It's amazing. We shouldn't expect it on atheism or naturalism, but we should expect it not just if God exists, but if the Christian God exists. And so that's something I've been studying a lot lately, and working with other scholars on. So I'll be talking about this a lot more on our YouTube channel as well, Free Thinking Ministries YouTube channel, and on the Free Thinking Ministries website. So people want to come look at what I'm messing around with.
Yep.
I'll be
links are in the description below. Thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you for joining me, Dr. Stratton, for this conversation about 3 keys that could save your life: faith, firearms, and fitness.
Amen.
We'll see you all next time on Trinity Radio Extra.